Hello, and welcome to another video on heliopsychology with me, Annani Kelley, PhD. Today's video is going to focus on solar activity and sleep and dreams. But first, to recap, as I do with every video, it is all about the energy. Our hearts and brains are organs of energy producing the human electromagnetic field, which is largely modulated by endogenous ferromagnetic particles and the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Solar and geomagnetic activity influence our brain waves, our heart rate variability. Our minds and bodies respond to external electromagnetic fluctuations. Today's focus again, sleep and dreams. So I took this screenshot a little bit after midnight, February 6th, UTC time. That's a little bit after 4 p.m. on February 5th, Pacific time. And as you can see, we've had just a lot of M flares. We haven't had any X flares today, but that may change. And this shows the 7-day trend, excuse me, of solar flaring. So solar flaring kind of began with the sunspot on the 31st, but really amped up on the 1st with that, I believe that was the X8 flare on the cusp, excuse my throat, on the cusp of February 1st and February 2nd. And the trend started going down a little bit. We still did have some pretty good sized flares, X flares as well, but the trend has gone down. And since basically yesterday afternoon, the flaring has just been in the M range. Now, that could change. I have seen some individuals bandy about the idea that another Carrington event could happen because of this flare. And my honest opinion is that they are blowing this out of proportion because it drives clicks and engagement. They are usually monetized people who are saying this, and they make money off the alarmist propaganda. But I'm trying just to get factual information. I'm not going to speak to whether or not a Carrington flare can happen. Certainly, it could happen eventually. Do I think the sunspot's going to produce it? Probably not. But moving on. And I did take this picture of that wonderfully beautiful sunspot group yesterday. This was with my Sea Star telescope. So moving on to dreams. Now, the reason why sleep and dreams are important psychologically is because they do have an impact on our psychological health. With sleep, you have your memory consolidation and memory formation. There's some theories on that, on the purpose of sleep, but it also rejuvenates your body. Your body needs that rest. So when you have insomnia, when you are deprived of sleep for, even one night or over extended periods of time, there's psychological effects. As this graph shows, this is from Wikipedia Creative Commons, so no copyright violation. Lower performance, slowed reaction time, risk of depression, risk of anxiety disorders. But what also happens is that people tend to become more volatile, more aggressive, more angry when they have not had adequate sleep. Additionally, when you have gone without sleep for a certain period of time, say 72 hours, 3 days of not sleeping, you'll start hallucinating. In very extreme cases, if you have been deprived of sleep, you could die. It's rare because people usually will pass out after a certain period of time, but truly a lack of sleep can kill you. Now, it also has the physical effects. Your body does suffer when you have a lack of sleep. So, not only are there biological factors involved with sleep, there's also the psychological factors involved with sleep. And that brings us back to heliopsychology, or the psychology of space weather, how space weather is affecting us on a psychological level. And space weather does influence our sleep and dreams. Now, I want to share this article. This is from David Cohen in Physics Today, 1975. And this was talking about the human magnetic field. So I'm going to bring my mouse over here to, to show you where I'm reading from. Specifically, this: the strongest magnetic field from nerve tissue is from the brain. The normal brain yields its largest fields during sleep, about 3 times 10 to the eighth Gauss in amplitude. That's huge. Okay. That's a huge change in our electromagnetic fields during sleep. And that would make sense because of the interactions between when we are asleep, we are more vulnerable. So I imagine that that increases because of the vulnerability of the body. Nonetheless, it also has an impact on how our bodies and minds interact with space weather as we're sleeping. So, for instance, I noticed that if there is a large solar flare and I'm asleep, I will wake up. Not only that, I'll wake up with a start, like I've been shocked awake, like something has suddenly woken me, and it's incredible. And inevitably, I will check to see what time it is. Now, given the modern age and the cell phones and whatnot, I'll reach for my phone to check the time. And because I have a space weather app, inevitably, if that happens, there will have been, or there is in the process of being, a large solar flare. So, large solar flares, especially X flares, will tend to wake me up out of a dead sleep. Now, this past few days, I have not been sleeping well. And I've seen that a lot in social media comments, people talking about they're not sleeping well. They're having very restless sleep during the solar activity. And that does happen. There is a reason behind that. And part of that reason is going to have to do with our hormones, right? So this paper does talk about that a little bit. This is a paper in the Geography and Environmental Studies faculty publications, the University of New Mexico, when emotions flare, solar rhythms, emotions, and cycles of political revolution. But mostly, I want to draw attention to this very interesting paragraph here: hormonal and neurotransmitter pathways. Melatonin is an important nocturnal antioxidant hormone modulated by the circadian rhythm. A recent study shows that intense solar activity is linked to reduced melatonin levels in patients with chronic respiratory diseases. And there are quite a bit of those people out there. Think about people with asthma, for instance. Research shows that melatonin and serotonin are critical for regulating sleep, mood, and emotional stability, and can be disrupted by intense solar activity and geomagnetic fluctuations. These solar induced disruptions to hormones and neurotransmitters affect brain regions such as the amygdala and habenula, which are key to processing fear, threat, and negative affect. Cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, is also regulated by the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the center of the circadian rhythm. Abnormal cortisol patterns are consistently linked with aggression, depression, and other mood disturbances. In this way, solar activity has multiple potential entry points into the body's emotional regulation systems. So, again, solar activity is altering your melatonin and thus altering your sleep patterns. And I'm also going to share this article written by Lipnicki, an association between geomagnetic activity and dream bizarreness, because this flows into my dissertation, which I'm going to share a little bit about. This was published in the Center for Space Medicine, Berlin. So what Lipnicki did was he looked at his dreams. He created a simple Likert scale of 1 to 5 to rank his dreams for their level of bizarreness. And he saw that his dreams got more bizarre with geomagnetic activity. Now, I used his Likert scale in my dissertation when I was doing my study on sleep and dreams. So what I did is I had 92 participants. It went over 71 days continuous, 71 straight days from November to January. So that was November of 2024 to January of 2025. And what I found was that solar flares saw more incidents of lucidity, more incidents of nightmares, and more incidents of aggressive dreams that were not nightmares, so non nightmare aggressive dreams. Those were dreams where people had violence, aggression, fights, even murder, but they did not perceive them as nightmares. And during solar flaring, the quality of sleep decreased. So when there were solar flares, people did not sleep well. Incidentally, when sunspots increased, even without the presence of solar flaring, just an increase in sunspot numbers also saw a decrease in the quality of sleep. And I believe the reason for that is because even though the sunspots are not flaring, the UV light is still increasing. And you can check that on GOES X-ray flux. You will see the flux increase when there's more sunspots, even though there's no true flaring. The other things that I found was that when solar flares and geomagnetism were combined, so if we had days of a geomagnetic storm and solar flares, which we did have during that period of time, then we also saw an increase in dream bizarreness, lucidity. And lucidity, for those who do not know, is when you know you are dreaming in the dream. An increase in nightmares, increase in non nightmare aggressive dreams, and quality of sleep went down. But the most interesting thing was that on the days when it was just geomagnetic storming, no solar flares at all, quality of sleep actually improved. Not sure why that is, but I'll kind of speak to that in a moment. Geomagnetism was also correlated with extraordinary dreams or dreams that had what individuals would self report as psychic events, lucidity, healing dreams, dreams of communing with the dead, things like that. So I did have that component in there because these are experiences that people do have in dreams. But nightmares and non-nightmare aggressive dreams also increase during geomagnetic storms. So key takeaways here. Solar and geomagnetic activity influence the hormones in our bodies, and this includes melatonin via the suprachiasmatic nucleus and the pineal gland. Sunspots and solar flares may disrupt your sleep. My dissertation did not see a correlation between quality of sleep and geomagnetism. This tends to mean that the light of solar flares are the primary culprit in sleep issues. And again, your suprachiasmatic nucleus is modulating that light. So when there's more light coming into your body, certainly it can disrupt sleep. So options to consider, you might want to consider taking melatonin. If your melatonin is being disrupted and you are having a hard time sleeping, please consider melatonin. There's also valerian, chamomile, and there's sleepy time teas. Additionally, you may want to consider distancing yourself from electronics, blue light, television, radio, anything that's going to keep you awake. Just put it aside. Put it aside 1 hour before bedtime. Additionally, you can consider meditation. Meditation is not just a religious or spiritual practice, it can also be a secular practice. It's just a way to focus and to calm your mind and to calm your body. And I do have some meditation exercises. If anybody's interested, you can leave a comment and let me know. So why or why not? Again, and I go through this with every video. By virtue of your sex, you are different than half the population, whether you're male or female could have a bearing because our hormones are different. Your age, whether or not you have a chronic illness, whether or not you are taking medication, whether or not you live near a magnetically active region like volcanoes or fault lines, whether or not you live above the 42nd parallel. Now, it's interesting for sleep because I was not able to calculate this or look at this because not everybody gave their geographic region when I was doing my dissertation. But the issues with sleep may be more acute for individuals who are on the daytime side of the earth when a solar flare occurs. You may also feel it during the night, during a nighttime solar flare, but I'm not sure if one feels it more than the other. And I would love to do a research study on that to see if more people have a disruption to sleep when they're on the daytime side of the earth, when a solar flare occurs, or if they're on the nighttime side. So if you're interested in doing a kind of research study with me, would like to collaborate, please let me know. I'm totally open for that. And again, I'm going to talk about the apps I'm creating. I don't like this one. I've said this in previous videos because it just doesn't get the space weather right. This one does. I love this one. It tracks your mood, your dreams, your sleep quality, your sleep duration, and does a multi-factor correlational analysis with space weather. However, I'm not monetized. I am broke, and this will take money to get it running to the public. And you can also, the one of the other reasons I like this app is because you can put in your history. If you have missed a day, you can go back and put that information in there. So future videos, of course, will include the hows and whys of heliopsychology, how to read the sun, discussions of relevant research, updates on solar activity, and answering questions from viewers. If you would like to see more videos like this one, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you would like to collaborate on a research project of space weather and psychology, space weather and biology, feel free to contact me through YouTube's messaging service or my personal email, dr_helio@mail.com. If you would like to support my channel, my research, and I am slowly working on a book. So if you'd like to support me while I'm doing that, consider donating via Venmo, Dr_Helio. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.